Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television is sponsored by Nutrien. Nutrien, feeding the future.
Hello everyone and welcome to Perspective. This is a public affairs presentation of Florida Gateway College. My name is Mike McKee and my guest on the program today is Dr. Barry Hummel Jr. He is a doctor and he's also Chief Executive Officer of QUITDOC Foundation, which deals with getting people to quit smoking. And today we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to talk about what vaping is and how dangerous it is. We'll do that when we come back. Don't go away.
Hi everybody, I'm Jack Hanna. Since I was a boy, I've been fascinated with animals, especially their tireless work ethic. Just look at birds who gather supplies to build nests, or penguins who travel up to 500 miles to secure food for their families. This work ethic is shared by our best friends, canines who perform life-saving work every day. Dogs comfort returning veterans. They work with diabetics, alerting them when there's a change in their blood chemistry. Working dogs are valuable in many ways. So please join me and American Humane in supporting our heroic working dogs. Go to AmericanHumane.org to learn more.
Welcome back to Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television, and also like to welcome the listeners to WCJX and WQHL Radio for being with us today on this program. Dr. Barry Hummel is the Chief Executive Officer of QUITDOC Foundation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. You're coming up here from South Florida. Talk a little bit about the QUITDOC Foundation. What is it? How did it get started?
Well, I'm a former Gator from the University of Florida, and one of my medical school colleagues and I started the foundation back in 2006 to work on youth tobacco prevention issues. We started primarily because we feel like the tobacco issue is one of the biggest public health problems facing youth and young people today. About 85% of new tobacco users start between the ages of 12 and 17, so we thought we would try to work on that in the state of Florida and reduce the use of tobacco products among our kids and teens.
And as a medical doctor, you kind of know what the results are of smoking, and I mean, not just smoking, but for
smokeless tobacco,
oral tobacco,
electronic cigarettes. There's health consequences of all those things. I'm a pediatrician by training. My colleague is a pulmonologist, and so he works primarily with adult tobacco cessation issues, and then I take care of most of the pediatric and youth prevention issues in the foundation.
What is it that the single root cause? I mean, is it peer pressure? What do you see young people that it's cool to smoke, or it's cool to chew tobacco, or?
The data would suggest that the primary reason that youth will pick up the habit of smoking in particular is that they see someone else smoking. So peer pressure plays into that, actually seeing that in film, television, even video gaming now. We see smoking incidents in those. And so when kids witness the act of smoking, it seems to be the primary factor in making them want to engage in that. We've reduced smoking in public places enough that that's lowered the chances of that, but then with vaping, where so many people use those in public places, we've seen a resurgence in that because of that.
Well, and it's difficult. We live in a very rural part of Florida, as you know from being here for a couple days. They used to grow tobacco here. Sure. In Columbia County, Suwannee County, Union County, and so it was a rite of passage to crop the tobacco, and you're growing a crop that you're selling and making a living on. Why not chew it, or why not smoke it?
Right, and then there's also there's a lot of rite of passage with hunting and fishing in these rural communities in north central Florida. When I started doing this back in 2008 up in Dixie and Gilchrist counties, about 20% of middle school students were using spit tobacco in that era, and mostly it was because it was first used with a hunting or a fishing trip with a parent. So there is a lot of cultural connection to tobacco in this part of Florida.
I know Dixie County is one of the counties that is served by Florida Gateway College, and I get the local newspaper, the Dixie County Advocate, and they put ads in there of what you look like when you've got oral cancer and the surgery, that it's kind of to scare those kids. Is that effective?
Some of that is effective. I think part of the problem with, those are our ads, by the way. We run those public service announcements in the Dixie County Advocate. And I think in a lot of ways, we're trying to reach adults with those ads in a newspaper. Children don't read newspapers.
Well, they don't read newspapers
right.
Anyway.
So, but Tobacco Free Florida, which provides us with a lot of the artwork for those ads, they also do a lot of public service announcements on social media outlets, YouTube. They run ads on Hulu. The kids who don't use tobacco because of the health consequences have learned the lesson. The problem is that you may know it's bad for you, and you may still choose to do it because of some of the things you suggested earlier, peer pressure. Your colleagues are doing it, your friends are doing it, you think it's a normal behavior, you perceive that all of us adults are out there doing it, and so you will see an increase in use even though they know that there's some harmful consequences. And part of that is that teenagers don't think the way adults do. Like, every birthday that comes for me, I recognize my own mortality, right? But if you put yourself back to when I was a teenager, I thought I was immortal too, and teenagers do dumb things and take chances that you wouldn't take as you got older and more mature. And so that makes them particularly vulnerable to the advertising of the tobacco industry, that because they don't think there will be any consequences to them individually. They may know that it's bad, but it's going to be bad for somebody else, not for me. And that's sort of the way the frontal lobe of the brain works in an adolescent.
Well, and the fact that it's addictive makes it even harder once you start.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure the key to your organization is to get people before they start.
Correct. In other words, our goal is we know how hard it is to quit once you've started the addiction. The industry's motive is to get somebody to start, because once they start, they're a guaranteed customer, right? So with a teenager, our goal is to have them never make that decision. It's too difficult to get somebody to quit once they've started such a tough addiction. So most of our programs for youth are prevention minded. And again, the health consequences are part of that prevention, but what we tend to do is work on how the industry markets specifically to them, how that advertising can be manipulative to try to get you to make a decision that you wouldn't otherwise make. Try to get them to understand that they're maybe being played by the advertising so that they don't make a bad decision. And then, if you start using tobacco, you have a 1 in 3 chance of dying early as a result of that. That's pretty good odds, right? That's like playing Russian roulette with 1 bullet and 2 other chambers in the gun. The kids don't understand that kind of statistic, but I know that if I can get 3 people not to use tobacco, I've saved 1 life today. So I work really, really hard to try to prevent people from starting.
How are they marketing tobacco now? Because you can't do television ads anymore, and I don't think I've seen an ad in a magazine for a while. So how are they doing it?
Well, what's interesting is that traditional tobacco products like cigarettes, cigars, spit tobacco have a lot of advertising restrictions as a result of years of working hard on that. In fact, they settled with the state's attorneys general back in 1998, and that was when you saw the reduction in tobacco advertising in magazines, no more billboards. TV ads haven't been around since 1971. The problem is with the electronic cigarettes, they fall outside those rules. Those kind of lawsuits and legal settlements haven't occurred for the vaping industry. So they've gone back to a lot of the same type of techniques that the traditional tobacco companies used, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So you will see magazine advertisements for vaping products. You will see television advertising for vaping products. And you will see a lot more direct to consumer mailers. A lot of e-cigarettes advertise in the things that you get at home in the mail with coupons available. But the one trick that both industries have used, both the traditional tobacco industry and the vaping industry, is to flavor the products to make them way more appealing to children than they would be for adults. So it'd be bubblegum flavored or gummy bear flavored. And those products are appealing to kids on a whole different level. So it's kind of it's a marketing tactic. It's a way to be appealing to a younger first-time user of tobacco. And that's a little more subtle because that's at point of sale. So you won't see that unless you, as an adult, walk into a store and kind of make yourself notice those things in the retail outlets.
Well, I noticed that when you walk into a convenience store, you see the cigars and the different flavors that they have, and even I guess it's blunts that they sell to. And what I understand, and again, I may be just naive, but they take marijuana and put it inside these things and smoke that. I wanted to talk to you about marijuana too, because you see pushes everywhere. You see there's a large law firm in Florida that is pushing recreational tobacco or marijuana use. How difficult is it to be fighting an organization that says, well, marijuana is good, and it's going to be great for you, and recreationally it's not going to hurt anybody, but seems like it's the same thing. Tobacco,
yeah.
marijuana. So you got another battle you're fighting.
You
is
are
it not?
absolutely correct. And so here's how that marketing tactic starts, right? First of all, we start with it's medical marijuana. And a lot of us in the medical industry joke and go, the only thing that makes it medical is that you put the adjective medical in front of the word marijuana. There is no scientific data because it's been a controlled substance, so you can't really do the studies. Now, I think we should study it. I don't know whether there would be some health benefits. I certainly, as an anti-anxiety medication, there's some evidence on PTSD, for example. I think it should be studied. I'm fine with that, but I don't think we should just outright call it a medication. In Florida, we created a parallel system to make it a medication, right? We have non-pharmacists dispensing it from non-pharmacies. We've created a parallel sort of medical system for dispensing marijuana. In most of the states, that was the stepping stone to going to recreational marijuana. I would rather just say, make it recreational. Let's not go with the bogus medical necessity thing. But let's not market it the way we market tobacco and alcohol, because the problem is, it's the marketing of those things that really is when you get the collateral damage, particularly in kids, or adults who wouldn't have used it otherwise. And so when you see in Colorado things like Pot Tarts or Ganja Joy candy bars or sodas that have THC in them, all of those things which are appealing to younger and younger people, I feel like you're going to start a whole generation that wouldn't have used it in using that chemical. And of course, the younger you start any chemical, whether it's nicotine, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, the younger you start that, the more you change your brain permanently. So the brain is developing over time. It's not fully formed till you're 24. If a 13-year-old starts nicotine, that's way worse than if an 18-year-old starts nicotine, which is way worse than if a 21-year-old starts nicotine. Same thing with marijuana. So my fear is that the marketing is what really drives kids to feel like it's normal, it's cool, it's okay. And by the way, add the vaping issue into it, because we really blur the lines between tobacco and marijuana use when we use electronic devices that you can put any concoction in that you want. So
and
we have a big problem.
And I want to talk about, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Hummel about vaping in particular in our next segment. You're watching Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television and WCJX WQHL Radio. We'll be right back.
Cancer may be tough, but we are tougher. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Our game-changing research has led to the belief that the cures for cancer are in our blood. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Beating cancer is in our blood.
Welcome back to Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television. Dr. Barry Hummel is the Chief Executive Officer of the QUITDOC Foundation based in South Florida, but he travels all over the state talking to anyone who will listen about the ills of tobacco use and how it's harmful to your health. But in particular, we've gone from, it seems like we're imitators for cigarettes now in what they call vaping, and I think it's sold to the public as a way to quit tobacco. It's gonna replace that tobacco and that nicotine addiction that you have with something that's safe. And you're not so sure about that.
Well, I'm not. First of all, the electronic cigarette industry, when they use the term quit, helps you quit, they're specifically saying helps you quit a combustible product, and instead you're going to buy our product. So it's really a product designed to have you switch how you receive your nicotine addiction. So there's not a lot of data that shows that the use of e-cigarettes will actually wean somebody off of nicotine and that they will be off of nicotine at the end of the day. The problem is that while that may be an off-ramp for some adults who are tobacco users, it's become a gigantic on-ramp for an entire generation of young people who have this perception that it's safe, or they've been told it's just, flavored water. They don't have an understanding of exactly how intense the nicotine addiction is. And so about the last statistics I saw show about 3% of adults use vaping devices, but in Florida, 25% of high school students use vaping devices on a regular basis, and about 10% of middle school students are using vaping devices on a regular basis. So what's happened is that something that may have some reduction of harm in adults has become a gigantic source of addiction for our young people. And the logic I use for that is, do I think e-cigarettes are safer than smoking a cigarette? Yes. But that's like saying, would I rather jump from a 30-story building or would I rather jump from a 10-story building? What I would really like to see is you don't jump off the building at all. And so while they may be safer because they have fewer chemicals than a traditional cigarette, they certainly have chemicals. And as we've seen in recent weeks, they're certainly dangerous. This vaping-related illness that's been in the news over the last couple of months demonstrates that without regulation, without knowing what's in it, that these things do cause harm in a very fast fashion.
Well, and I think the scary thing for people should be that we really don't know. I mean, you do an autopsy on someone that maybe dies and they think the cause is vaping, but they're not sure yet. That should scare people, that you don't really know what were they vaping? Did they develop this cough because of vaping? We don't know.
Here's the problem. So the FDA has issued regulations for electronic cigarettes. One of the things that is coming down the line is that the companies, everybody who makes an e-cigarette will have to submit their list of ingredients so that the FDA can evaluate what's in it.
Now, and they don't have to do that now, right?
Not currently. Not currently.
So there could be anything.
Any number of things. So when they're looking at the chemicals that are in there now, so why are people getting sick? We have about 1,300 as of the last report from the CDC. About 1,300 people have this vaping-related illness. About 75% of the products are THC-containing products. So it's somebody somewhere mixing chemicals in a garage, maybe selling it online because it's in every state in the country with the exception of Alaska. It's probably an oil-based chemical because of the type of pneumonia and the type of lung problems that are developing, but they cannot pinpoint the exact chemical. And not all of them are THC products. So some of them are just straight up nicotine delivery devices.
Now, when you say THC, for those who are not familiar with that, that's the ingredient that gets you high from marijuana.
Correct. That's the active ingredient from marijuana. So what they're extracting that and putting it into the liquids that are used in these electronic devices, the same way they extract nicotine from a tobacco plant and then put that extracted nicotine into the cartridges of the electronic cigarettes.
And again, how do you know what level of nicotine that you're getting? I mean, now again, I'm no scientist, but the people who are marketing this stuff, how do they know?
Again, if it's being mixed in a garage, you don't know the answer to that. It may say something on the label, but nobody's independently testing that like the FDA. So if something says, well, this contains 40 milligrams of nicotine or 60 milligrams of nicotine, you're taking it on faith by the person who's manufactured it, that's what's in there, not on an independent test that says, well, yes or no, or it has more. And an example of that is that many products are marketed as having 0% nicotine. How do you know that? Because it says it on the label? That doesn't mean anything. Remember, if somebody's trying to sell an addictive substance for profit, it's not in their best interest to put 0% nicotine in it because you won't come back. You won't buy that product anymore. So they may tell you it has 0 and it may have some nicotine in it. We absolutely don't know. That's why it's important that the FDA test the products and make sure that everything that's in there is safe, that it's been somehow approved for use. A lot of the chemicals in there have been approved for use in, say, food items like a flavoring, but not approved to inhale. None of these products have been approved or approved safe for inhalation. And they just get dumped into these pellets, and then people inhale them, and this is now you see the consequences of just unchecked chemical mixtures in labs all over the United States.
So there could be a derivative of LSD to get you psychedelic smoke or vape.
Theoretically.
So I mean, again, without regulation, it's really difficult. Now you brought one with you because I wanted the folks to be able to see just exactly if you've seen, and sometimes we'll see students on campus walking down across campus, and then all of a sudden you see this huge puff of smoke. It looks like smoke, but it's not. It's a vape mixture.
Yes, the one I brought is called a Juul. This is about 75% of the e-cigarette market at this time. It's produced by two tech guys from California, out near San Francisco. This is the entire device. So this pellet, which has less than 1 cc, 1 milliliter of fluid in it, has 40 milligrams of nicotine in it. Now, if I were to smoke a regular cigarette, I might get 1 to 2 milligrams of nicotine out of the cigarette. So that is the equivalent of somewhere between 1 and 2 packs of cigarettes.
Packs?
Packs.
Now and we're talking, that's between 20 and 40 cigarettes.
Correct.
And this is done all at one time.
No, what you do is, and I'm not going to demonstrate it, obviously, because I'm nicotine free, is you inhale and it pulls over a little heating coil that then makes the mist. This one's very discreet. This is the most popular one among children because it looks exactly like a flash drive. So these are shown up on school campuses in backpacks.
Well, you could put it in your hand and nobody would ever know you
Nobody would
have
ever
it.
know it. It makes less mist than the traditional ones because it's designed to be discreet. And so this is the thing that children are using on school campuses at this point.
Okay, so again, and I don't mean to market this, but what does something like that cost for the unit itself?
I bought the device online for $30. It came with 4 pellets of nicotine, 4 different flavors:
So
mango, mint, creme brulee or cream, and then traditional tobacco. And then if you buy the pellets, they're about, I think, $6.99, $7.99 a piece, and they're available in convenience stores and also online.
And again, there's no regulation on what that, I mean.
This has been independently tested, which is why it wasn't done by the FDA, but it was independently tested to know how much is in there. But these guys don't make any bones about it. They're happy to report that they have the most nicotine in the smallest volume that you can get. Their nicotine is a nicotine derivative of salt that mimics exactly what would happen if you inhaled off a traditional cigarette. It gets to your brain equally quick, and the potential for addiction is based on how fast after you inhale it the nicotine reaches your brain. And this mimics a traditional cigarette more than anything else. But the problem is, if I had a traditional cigarette, I would smoke it to the filter. I would know I was done. I would toss it on the ground because, I like to litter. And I'd be done with it. I know the end point, and I would have gotten my 1 milligram of nicotine. What happens with these is people puff on them, and then they puff on them again. There's no end point. So they will take in more nicotine than they would over the course of a day than they would with traditional cigarettes because they don't know when it ends. And so if you're a small middle school student and you take 10 drags off of that thing, which is, a significant amount of nicotine, we're starting to see middle school students show up in ERs with the shakes, because it is a neurotoxin. They're coming in with the jitters as a result of that. There is a nicotine toxicity that goes on when small people use a lot of nicotine, and this one delivers more nicotine than any product on the market.
So you say middle school students are carrying these around in their backpacks?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Now, does it smell?
These don't smell.
So I mean, well, again, how would someone at a school know, unless they see a puff of smoke or vapor coming out, that the kid is doing it?
That's absolutely right. That's why this is such a devious
Sneaky.
thing, is because the kids can use them, and what they do is they'll take a drag on it and then they'll blow the smoke down their sleeve, so they can do it right in the classroom. Jewel lounges now exist. They're the typical bathrooms. And so we hear reports of kids who are afraid to go to the bathroom at their school because everybody's in the bathroom doing this. And when they get in there, it's like, here, do this, do this, do this. And then, of course, you don't know because you could put cartridges on this with THC, or the active ingredient from marijuana, so that kids don't even know what they're getting when they're looking at a device like this. And so in Broward County, where I live, they have a very strict policy about this. They're actually testing the devices. If there's THC in the devices when the kids are caught, they get referred for a felony. I mean, it's a big time problem. There's all kinds of suspension protocols in place just for having these. So how are the kids avoiding that? Well, one kid carries this, one kid carries this, one kid carries the charger. And so if you're caught, you don't have the active device, they can't really do anything about it. Then they all meet in the bathroom, put the thing together, and then use it in the bathroom. So this is a huge problem in Florida.
Well, when you see a picture of a middle school student who is 13 or 14 years old that is not fully developed, they don't weigh very much. They may weigh 110 pounds or 120 pounds. The smaller you are, the more that affects you.
Correct.
Like you were taking a drink of alcohol, the less you weigh, the more it's going to affect you. Again, this sounds like an extreme challenge for school systems because somehow kids are getting these.
Yes.
And when you mentioned it was $7 for the equivalent of 2 packs of cigarettes, and you can smoke it in your car, you can smoke it in school, you can smoke it in the bathroom, you can smoke it everywhere, or vape it. This has become a public health threat, really.
Yeah, it really has. We've lost a generation of tobacco prevention with our kids. 25% of high school students are using e-cigarettes on a regular basis in Florida. That's the number that were using traditional cigarettes in 1999. So 20 years of tobacco prevention that we've lost. Same thing with middle school students. About 8 to 10% of middle school students are using vaping devices on a regular basis in Florida, and that was the amount that were using traditional cigarettes 15 years ago in 2003. So we have done a great job in Florida of reducing use of traditional tobacco products, cigarettes, cigars. It's less than 2% in each category for middle school students. It's less than 5% for our high school students. And then this comes out of the woodwork and boom, it just exploded. It's exponential growth year to year. The data I just cited for you is from 2018. The 2019 data hasn't been collated yet. We'll get statewide data here this fall. I'm afraid it's going to be 30 or 35% of high school students that are doing electronic cigarettes on a regular basis in the state of Florida.
And this is Juul. This is one
That's one.
kind. I mean, you can go to a vape. There are vape shops all over Florida and the nation where they do different kinds of these units that can.
Yeah, they're all shapes. They're all sizes. And you can mix and match chemicals and put anything in them that you want. So you buy the device, it's got a tank that you fill, and you can buy products that you prefer the flavor of, and you put it in the device. So you have two industries really that are going on kind of simultaneously. You have the kind of traditional e-cigarette industry, and I would put Juul in that category where it's pre-packaged, they're kind of disposable or rechargeable, they're small, they're slim, convenience stores would have them. And then you would have kind of the vape shops that you referred to, where they're bigger models, tank systems, rechargeable, and you have the mix and match chemicals. And they're really two similar but kind of competing industries, if you can imagine that.
We're going to take our last break here on Perspective. Interesting conversation with Dr. Barry Hummel of the QUITDOC Foundation. We'll be back with some closing thoughts with him just in a minute.
All right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Welcome back to Perspective. Just kind of a mind-blowing informational program today on vaping and cigarettes, and we're so glad that Dr. Barry Hummel came up to Columbia County. I know you did a presentation to a group of people, and probably didn't have as many people that should be there, but hopefully some people can be reached with information that you have. If you'd like more information on the QUITDOC Foundation, if you'd like to maybe make a contribution for the work that they are doing throughout our state, the contact information is at the bottom of the screen, quitdoc.com. Also, if you'd like to be more hands-on and volunteer with the Tobacco-Free Partnership here in Columbia County, Joey O'Hearn is the executive director there. It's tfp-columbia.org. And Joey's more than happy to have volunteers that can help him get the word out to, again, I think a public health crisis is upon us and we don't even know it at this point.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching Perspective here on Florida Gateway College Television. Don't vape, don't smoke. Till next time, I'm Mike McKee. So long.